My friends, we've won a victory. Savor it because there aren't that many. But we won one. Time to rejoice. Guys, this is Howard Riell back with Real Truth. We won a victory. It's amazing, right? We're not winning that many these days, but we won one from the Rutherford Institute, rejecting an attempt by the government to censor trademark names that might cause offense. A unanimous U.S. Supreme Court has ruled in Mattal versus Tom that even speech that some find offensive is protected by the First Amendment. In striking down the federal trademark statute that allowed the government to reject trademark applications for names it considered insulting to persons or groups, the court reasoned that, quote, trademarks are private, not government speech. Therefore, should not be banned on the ground that expresses ideas that offend. The Rutherford Institute filed an amicus brief in the case on behalf of, quote, the Slants, an Asian American dance rock band whose trademark application was rejected by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office on the grounds that it might disparage or offend persons of Asian heritage. The court's ruling is expected to impact a similar legal challenge mounted by the Washington Redskins football team, whose trademark protection was revoked by PTO under the same federal statute. Whether the debate is over a trademark for the Slants or the Redskins, the sticking point remains the same. How much do we really value the First Amendment? And how far are we willing to go to protect someone else's freedom of speech, even if that speech might be offensive to someone, asked constitutional attorney John Whitehead, president of the Rutherford Institute, unquote. My friends, know this. Get this right. This is a victory for free speech. Anyone who calls another person by a racial epithet is an idiot and a dunce. No excuse for using a racial epithet against any person. But the Constitution wouldn't give us protected speech unless it was speech that needed to be protected. If you say something and nobody much cares, well, you don't need to protect that kind of speech, do you? Freedom of speech means freedom to say things that are, frankly, outrageous, that are offensive. It's an important freedom. It's a central, fundamental freedom. If I were starting a rock group, would I call it the Slants? No. If I were starting a football team, would I call it the Redskins? No. But that's besides the point. The point is freedom. And finally, on this day, the Supreme Court has backed constitutional freedom of free speech. Hasn't been happening much in the last few years. I hope it's the beginning of a trend where the Supreme Court moves back to constitutionally protected freedoms. But anyway, we don't get many victories, and this is one, so rejoice. This is Real Truth, my friends. We'll be back.
The American Freedom doesn't speak to people. 1-8, people come to make a donation or simply check for the money. Feel about 175 Johnstown, Colorado. Table 534. Feel about 175 Johnstown, Colorado. Table 534. Freedom on the air. Thanks.
Reason Gold, brought to you by the Patriot Trading Group at allamericangold.com. Reason number 147. Most people don't even know that the courts have already ruled once money is deposited into the bank owns the money, and the depositor is merely an unsecured creditor of the bank, which means if the bank goes under, you get paid last. After the financial crisis, instead of breaking up too big to fail, the government, the Federal Reserve, created Dodd-Frank and made too big to fail banks even bigger while putting your deposits more at risk. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group. To learn more, visit us at allamericangold.com or call us at 9510592.
All right, guys, welcome back. You know, there's an awful lot of talk about what's going on in Europe. Islamic attacks are happening more frequently in Europe. No surprise, it's the month of Ramadan. Now, here's someone I haven't had on the show before. I think I'm going to put on 3 of her videos today because she's very articulate, very bright. She comes from Canada. Her name is Faith Goldie. I've saved these on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. Listen to what she's got to say because she's very, very bright. Here's a young lady named Faith Goldie. Let's listen.
Don't you love the High Holy Days? Christians, we sing and shop for hours. Jews, they spend the dreidel. And Muslims, well, they partake in a bombathon. So it's Ramadan, and once again, the Islamic State has urged their adherents to wage war on infidels. In the first 10 days of Ramadan, Islamic terrorists have killed shy of 600 innocents in 55 attacks across 17 countries. Worth mentioning here, by the way, that the amount of attacks or murders waged by all other religions and Islamophobes combined has been a total of 0. So far this year, Ramadan attacks have hit countries all the way from Afghanistan to Australia, as well as attacks against infidels in the European Caliphate, including an attack in Germany against a father of 2 who was stabbed to death by Muslims for smoking during Ramadan. And, of course, the London Bridge attack, which left 7 dead and 48 injured, several of whom remain in critical condition. A terror attack, by the way, that came on the heels of the pre-Ramadan attacks on Westminster, 6 dead there, and Manchester, in which 22 innocents were killed, including children as young as 8 years old. But don't worry, Brits. Prime Minister Theresa May, she's got you covered. Shortly after the most recent attack, Miss May pledged to regulate the internet, because apparently that will stop terrorism. Because clearly, what the UK has is an internet freedom problem, not an Islamic terrorism problem. So, after all of this, a friend of mine from the UK asked me something that maybe a couple of you might be thinking if you're in regular conversation with those sobs who have not yet been green-pilled, i.e. have their eyes opened, their mind open to the not-so-secret truth that the Muslim holy war is the greatest threat to our Western civilization. So my friend, he asked me if I ever feel like I've said everything that I can say at this point about the European Caliphate. How many times can you make the same videos? He asked before suggesting that I retire. Truth be told, I have not said everything that I can say on the issue. I've actually been sitting on a couple ideas, ones that are perhaps a touch more severe than my usual suggestions to date. So here's how I see it. So we've tried things. The diversity is our strength, open borders, cultural enrichment way, right? Well, in order to reverse things, Europe's going to have to change its approach radically. What Europe needs in order to solve its jihad problem is a 2-pronged plan. One that is preventative and the other that's adaptive for the Muslim populations already within their borders. Now, first, how to prevent their jihadi cancer from metastasizing. A Trump-styled travel ban in the skies and stopping the boats at sea. Save Sweden, every European nation that's been hardest hit by Islamism is a NATO member state. Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, that Three Musketeers clause of an attack against one is an attack against all, it must be invoked. Article 5 was invoked after 9/11, and the world went to Afghanistan thereafter. And yes, I understand that there's a NATO US-led mission in the Middle East right now, but guess what? The terrorists aren't just hiding in the Middle East this time. Their military invasion is occurring along the Mediterranean shorelines of Greece and Italy. Consequently, Europe must turn these terror cargo boats away. And the only way to do that is with trained troops, armed to the teeth, RPGs, you name it, unafraid of, yes, firing at the migrant boats in order to ensure that the message that Europe is closed for business gets back to the countries from which they hail. So far this year, already 70,000 migrants have entered Europe by sea, and that is a very conservative estimate, by the way. 80% of those migrants arrived through Italy alone. This is, of course, at the outset of the summer, when numbers typically rise, and that's on top of the literal millions who have already arrived. This is an invasion. Time to just wake up and stop the enemy rather than corralling them in. And stopping the boats isn't a pipe dream. After migrant bodies washed up on Australian shores, the country implemented one of the harshest border policies in the whole world, and it was characterized by 3 core points. Number 1, turning away or towing back migrant boats. Number 2, forcing migrants to live in detention centers. And number 3, guaranteeing that they will never be resettled in Australia. It worked in Australia, and it can work in the Mediterranean. So, what are we to do with the migrants who are already in Europe? Ask me, there are actually 2 groups of migrants, the fundamentalists and those for which there could be some hope for integration, contingent on several dependent variables. First, the fundamentalists. Any migrant or citizen on any terror watch list ought to be detained. I'm not sure how many more generals, commanders, and pollsters politicians have to hear from before they finally clue into the fact that ISIS has infested the migrant class, which is in turn infesting boroughs all across Europe. Right now, in the UK, for instance, the scale of terror is some 23,000 suspects being monitored. And you know what I say? Lock them up. Imagine the scale of security and intelligence resources and monies that are being poured into just monitoring these jihadis. And it's not even working. Of all the recent attacks in Europe, these terrorists have already been known to police. Men, women, all considered different levels of risk. For Pete's sakes, the London Bridge attack was committed by a terrorist who, while known to the authorities, he wasn't even under surveillance because they were considered to be, quote, low risk. Europe is absolutely kidding herself if she thinks that she's striking some sort of a balance between civil liberties and security. The security of the European people is at risk every damn minute of every damn day because they've put migrant liberties above European children's safety. Enough. In turn, every damn suspected jihadi, even those considered low risk, indefinite. Okay, so what do we do about the migrants that are already within European borders and will not be put in jail?
Well, my friends, that's a real good question, and Faith Goldie has an answer. Like I said, I put this video up on my Facebook page. We're about to hit a commercial. I'm going to be playing 2 more videos from her because she's that bright and she's that right about how to handle the immigrant problem, the Islamic problem. Do go to my Facebook page, Riell Truth Radio, R-I-E-L-L. Check it out. Watch the videos. Comment. Write back to me. Item from AJC.com. More than 24 men arrested Saturday at a Coweta County sports bar that officially had been investigated for months. All right, we'll get into this when we come back because it's an interesting piece. Real Truth is marching on, my friends. I invite you. March with us. Go nowhere.
Became flesh and bones among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, This was he of whom he said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the America News Network. Really, police, thank them for doing a great job. Shop and rig the family. Realize their job is dangerous. Sometimes things. Especially uniform 23 on the Christmas Day cake. The uniform people in Greeley. Piccolo's restaurant reminds us that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were affected by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver. It's not only the best they sound in Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757
757-2166.
My friends, welcome back to Real Truth. I am Howard Riell, and we're going to be going back to Faith Goldie, I promise. In the meantime, let me touch on this. If you're on the right, like I am, and in the right, you're probably being bullied, intimidated by the left. There's a lot of that going around these days. You're following it in the news. Here's Alex Jones talking about whether or not we should run and hide from the liberal left. I'm sure you can guess where he stands and where I stand on the issue. This video is also on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. It begins with a clip from Fox News. It goes on for a few minutes. Then it transitions to Alex Jones. It's important listening. Here we go.
This is the issue. If the governments who are responsible for our common welfare, common good, and defense are shown to be ineffective, people on the opposite side are going to rise up. So what you see here is the automatic response, force on force, of certain folks coming back to essentially create, to retaliate. So again, the pathology is clear. If one side begins to act violently, you have inevitably the other side starting to come back. It always happens. So we have to understand, if the government does not stop the violence on the left, you'll see more violence on the right and retaliation. It's inevitable.
Colonel, you fight war zones. People
Yes.
are getting way too crazy about politics. These are a difference in philosophy.
The left is doing
We shouldn't be shooting at each other and trying to stab each other,
Precisely.
rushing in stages. It's out of control. Hopefully rational people will dial it back.
Hopefully.
I didn't think I'd have to tap into your terrorism knowledge for these segments, but sadly we do.
The president, for better or for worse, is the ultimate classification or declassification authority. He can talk to anybody about anything, no matter what the level is. And beyond that, I understand that things were instantly twisted by the National Security Council staff and leaked, obviously, to the Post. And there was a very delayed, very muted response where they should have been right up there outlining the facts right up front about how this is completely false. So I think they, like you point out, the White House communication staff has to believe they are now in a state of war. This is war. It's called information operations, information warfare, and clearly the other side, the deep state, and the Clinton folks, and I have to say some folks on the Republican side are all lining up. The battle lines are drawn. It's time for people to understand how to deal with this as if like it's a war.
The deep state is committed to maintaining this assault, it seems. I mean, we're not even 4 months into the Trump presidency, and the assaults continue, the attacks continue, and we have, as you indicated at the outset, the New York Times and the Washington Post, these are no longer fake news. I mean, they are, it's an entire psyops. It is a disinformation campaign from previous, former journalists. What do you think, having some experience with all of the above, would be an appropriate response by this White House?
Well, two things. First, you're completely correct on the papers. I mean, this is they become Pravda, just to use a Cold War metaphor, and it's shameful. Secondly, regarding the very fact, and look, I've met with senior intelligence officials now in place, and Lou, they have to go through and sort out who is going to be actual career people who are going to do their job and those who are loyal to the previous administration. And some of these folks have transitioned from what we call political appointee jobs into career jobs. So you got to go through. So my recommendation, I'll tell you what I said. You need to go fire two levels down. Everybody below you 2 levels, fire them. Be done with it. Thank you for your service to America. It's time for you to find a new job. And then start looking for people who are going to be loyal to the American people and to the policies of this president.
So the question is, do we run like they tell them to do in England? If a Muslim's running over with a car or shooting you or stabbing you, do you say, I'm sorry, I'm a European or I'm white or I'm Christian, and just help them slit your throat? Or do you line your kids up in the street for them to run them over? Or do you just bow down and worship? Or if a leftist wants to stab you, you say, I'm sorry, here's the heart. I mean, because that's how crazy all of this has gotten. So we're not even being sarcastic now. Joe Biggs joins us to break this down. One of his friends got stabbed last night out in California. We can show folks the article on Infowars.com. Here, him with the gentleman that got stabbed. This is a real travesty. Antonio Foreman. Tell us about what happened, Joe.
Yeah, he was at a free speech rally yesterday with Kyle Chapman, a.k.a. Base Stick Man. He's also Baked Alaska, Tim Treadstone's bodyguard. He goes to all these events across the country, to free speech events, to different events where Antifa and the left are trying to take down monuments of American history. So he's been to a lot of these events before. He's a well-profiled person.
Looks like he was targeted, is what you're saying?
I believe so. I mean, I believe it was an Antifa attack or something. The fact that
they probably said they were Armenians. They're probably Muslims, probably trying to scapegoat Armenians.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that they said that the car ran through a barrier and then ran into his car. Then they got out all nonchalant and said, hey, let's exchange information. And then all of a sudden they flipped out. I mean, who runs into a car through a barrier on accident and then all of a sudden it turns into a stabbing? I mean, the cops are saying it wasn't premeditated.
Totally premeditated. They were gutting themselves up to do it. They were making sure there weren't any guns out. They were a bunch of cowards.
And it's interesting what you're talking about earlier with that Muslim girl that was killed. There was a lady named Amy Siskind. She's a verified account on Twitter. I don't know what she does, but she goes, oh my God, this is what happens in Trump's America. I go, that's BS. I said, you have an agenda and you're ignoring the facts that she was killed by an illegal alien. If POTUS was allowed to do what he wanted to do with a travel ban and build the wall, this wouldn't have happened. I said, you're using this to spin your own agenda to blame it on the white man, to blame it on the conservative, when in fact it was a minority who killed another minority, has nothing to do with Trump, has nothing to do with conservatism. It just has to do with a bad person that got through the border when he shouldn't have been here in the first place. And now you have the Daily Caller. They've come out with a list of attacks on conservatives. Just in January, a Trump supporter was knocked unconscious after airport protesters repeatedly beat him on the head. A Trump supporter was attacked another time after putting out a fire that was started by an anti-Trump protester. And I mean, he goes on and on and on.
Well, you know what needs to happen? People need to start packing. And when somebody pulls a knife out or someone tries to kill them or attack them, people need to defend themselves and put these animals down. The left will say that's me calling for terror. No, if somebody tries to kill you, defend yourself. That's America. We're not North Korea where you liberals go on vacation and just dream of how you could be in a death camp, torturing us to death and raping our families. We're going to fight you dirtbags. We'll be right back. I am not for offensive attacks on the left, on communists, on jihadis, on anybody. But if somebody walks up and says, get ready to be stabbed, white boy, you're ready to be shanked, and pulls a knife out, you better have a concealed carry. You better draw, and you better defend yourself. Now, that's what they teach you in concealed carry class, you name it, but go get your own training. Go get firearms training. Don't be looking for trouble. I'm not looking for trouble. I don't want the trouble of having to put somebody down. But, I've had leftists walk over to me in downtown Austin and say, you and Trump should go to hell and show me their gun. And I'm just like, are you kidding? At that time, I was with 4 people who were all armed with concealed carries, and we were all going to the shooting range. We walked out of a restaurant. He followed us out. And we all turned like in a gunfighter movie, and we're just standing there. And I was with trained military people, and the guy kind of got sense and walked off. But that's where this country's gone, ladies and gentlemen. These people are whacked out. So the question is, do we run like they tell them to do in England? If a Muslim's running over with a car or shooting you or stabbing you, do you say, I'm sorry, I'm a European or I'm white or I'm Christian, and just help them slit your throat? Or do you line your kids up in the street for them to run them over? Or do you just bow down and worship? Or if a leftist wants to stab you, you say, I'm sorry, here's the heart.
My friends, that's not the American way. It's not the smart way. Rather than importing problems and then freaking out about how to handle them, what do you say we don't import problems? Does that make too much sense? If it does, I apologize. Item. Also from InfoWars, Alex Jones just referenced this. The murder of an American Muslim teen in Virginia that leftists blamed on Donald Trump was actually committed by an illegal immigrant. As soon as this facet of the story became known, leftists suddenly lost all interest in the case. 17-year-old Nabra Hassanan was killed during an incident on Sunday when Darwin Martinez Torres drove up on a curb towards a group of about 15 teens who were walking in Fairfax County after participating in an event at the Al Dulles Area Muslim Society. Torres became enraged after arguing with one of the teens on a bike before leaving his vehicle and chasing the group with a baseball bat. The suspect caught Hassanen and hit her with the bat before taking her body to an unknown location in Loudoun County. Hassanen, whose body was found in a pond around 3 p.m. Sunday in Sterling, Virginia, died from blunt force trauma to the upper body, reports ABC News, unquote. So Donald Trump is trying to do everything he can to get rid of illegal aliens. An illegal alien commits a crime, and according to liberals, it's Donald Trump's fault. Do you follow the logic? If you do, you've got problems, because there is no logic. Item from the Daily Caller: Arizona Republican Senator John McCain in 2012 turned over nearly $9 million in unspent funds from his failed 2008 presidential campaign to a new foundation bearing his name, the McCain Institute for International Leadership. The institute is intended to serve as a legacy for McCain and is dedicated to advancing human rights, dignity, democracy, and freedom. It's a tax-exempt, nonprofit foundation with assets valued at $8.1 million and associated with the Arizona State University. Conservative and liberal critics, however, believe the institute constitutes a major conflict of interest for McCain. The Daily News Foundation's investigative group has learned, unquote. My friends, it's related, it's connected in some way to George Soros. John McCain is connected to George Soros, which certainly explains a lot of what John McCain has been saying for the past many years. Item from moneyish.com. A slew of new surveys and data have come out revealing that we don't save enough, we spend money we don't have, we have our financial priorities backwards, and more. Here are 5 new stats that prove Americans are backwards about money. About 1 in 4 literally have no emergency savings. A survey released Tuesday, that's today, by Bankrate.com, found that 24% don't even have a single dollar saved for an emergency. And that's just one of the many surveys showing how little we've saved. A survey released in January by Bankrate found that nearly 60% of Americans wouldn't have enough savings to pay a $500 expense if it came up unexpectedly. What's more than 1 in 5 say they'd slap down their credit card to pay that expense, and more than 1 would mooch off family to get the cash. The experts recommend that Americans have at least 3 to 6 months of income in the bank to pay for unexpected emergencies. We Americans are more worried about paying for our next vacation than about saving enough for retirement. That's the finding of a study released this week by Country Financial, in which Americans report being more concerned about affording the vacations, 36%, than having adequate retirement savings, 32%. Here's another one. Millions of us hide money from our spouses and partners. An estimated 12 million Americans confess they've kept a source of money secret from their romantic partners. Here's another one. We prioritize paying the wrong bills first. When we can't pay all our bills, we make bad choices about what to pay. Consumers in financial distress tend to prioritize unsecured personal loans ahead of other credit card products, such as auto loans, mortgages, and credit cards, according to a study of roughly 2 million consumers who had all 4 types of debt out this week from credit monitoring service TransUnion. Experts say it's a backwards way to handle these bills. Also, we've racked up $1 trillion in credit card debt, and that's just a fraction of what we owe. That's according to data released this year by the Federal Reserve, which found U.S. consumers owe $1.004 trillion on their cards, up 6.2% from a year ago. This is the highest amount owed since January 2009. What's more, this isn't the only consumer debt to top $1 trillion. We now also owe more than $1 trillion for our cars and for our student loans, the data showed. The story was originally published in May and has since been updated. My friends, if you don't have it, don't spend it. Don't rely on credit, because credit doesn't hurt, and it builds up without our knowing it. The next thing you know, we are buried. A lot of Americans are making a lot of mistakes. Don't be one of them. Here comes a commercial break. Real Truth will return, my friends. Stick around.
1, 2, 5, or 4 nutritional supplements. You're supplemented with Bio Superfoods. World over. This is Bio Superfoods from BioH.com. And now it's got one nutritional supplement instead of many. The Bio Superfoods formulas are whole food products. The most with four of the most nutrients out on earth. Bio Superfoods the brain. Helps with focus. If you increase weight, the rest of the body doesn't go bigger. Bio Superfoods has zero toxicity and is safe for human consumption. Order Bio Superfoods formulas at BioH.com. 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 Call 877-888-9116. BioH. Testimony of John, the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 19 through 21.
The cookies at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter might be able to. No one anywhere is more noble, righteous, ethical, gracious than our United States Armed Forces. These brave men and their families put the bill for our freedom every day. Send a military care package today to let them know that they are in our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts. This message is from the associates at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter on Highway 287 in Lafayette. They're on the air because they care. You look at the blocker plan, and Elizabeth reminds us that the drug problem is well documented. We know our kids will be approached at early age. We want to applaud the youngsters in our community who have had the strength to know the truth. They provide examples to their peers and families to be the best they can be. That's the Elizabeth blocker plan located at Liberty, serving our area since 1943 and specializing in naturalized HC and pork and complete custom process. Call 303-688-2240. That's 303-688-2240. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
And we continue. Howard Riell, Real Truth, my friends. Thanks for listening today. How do you know the feminists are hypocrites? Well, that's easy. They don't speak out against Islam, which is the most woman-crushing belief system on the planet Earth. Let's go back to Faith Goldie talking about feminism and Islam. Here we go.
Salam alaikum, feminists. Peace be upon you. Now, I don't mean to break up this honeymoon thing you got going on with Islam. Yeah, but someone's got to get between this slow dance and tell you, y'all just weren't meant for each other. I know. Research, logic, critical thinking, not really your strong suits. But straight up, feminists, you're getting pranked by Islam. The young girl at the end of that video, not to mention the innumerable others around her who submitted to the Muslim call to prayer at their Women's March, are not submitting because they're intimidated by Islam or afraid of violent retaliation, or simply because they don't wish to offend the babyish sensibilities of many Muslims. They're submitting because they have been brainwashed. They've been told that a hussied-up, hijabbed woman is the new face of their movement, the ultimate embodiment of diversity and distinct strength, and that they're pro-Sharia organizers about the same struggle against oppression as they are. The truth is, we women, we're going to have to pick. Which one is it going to be? Feminism or Islam? Because frankly, in no world can the two cultures coexist. You cannot simultaneously be a Western feminist and profess all the fundamental tenets of Islam. The feminist rallies against the patriarchy. However, Islam is the patriarchy to the umpteenth degree. Islam teaches that women are worth less than men, that women are subservient to men, submissive to men. According to the Quran, women aren't allowed to so much as look at men in the eyes. Heck, Muhammad even brags about how his wives are trained to defecate on his command. The feminist, well, she's against misogyny, but in Islam, misogyny and sexism are actually mathematically established. A woman's testimony in court, for instance, is worth exactly half that of a man's. The feminist goes on slut walks in a demonstration of her sexual autonomy, but no such autonomy exists for women in Islam. The Quran says that it is men who determine how a woman is to dress. There are no slut marches in the Middle East. There's no march for women of any kind. That's because the Quran teaches that women are to be confined to their homes, that they are to abide quietly there, unless of course they have a man's permission to go outside. The last time that they had a women's march in the Middle East was the last time that women in the Islamic Republic of Iran left their homes without a hijab. Because, as it turns out, folks, the Islamic Republic's revolutionary government was being dead serious when they declared that henceforth, yea and forevermore, all Iranian women would not be allowed to step outside of their own homes if they did not wear a head covering, a hijab, that oppressive cloth that the Western feminist has come to adore. However, ironically and frankly pathetically, the Western feminist says, my body, my choice. Well, aborting a fetus is haram in Islam, while a man has complete dominion over his wife's plural bodies. Islam turns women's bodies into the ultimate commodity, even permitting men to take on slaves outside of marriage. The feminist stands quite rightly against domestic violence and violence against women. Well, according to the Muslim holy book, yeah, it's actually perfectly permissible for husbands to beat their wives. The feminist stands against so-called rape culture, while Islamic nations, well, they regularly partake in victim blaming. In several Muslim countries, it would be common to throw the rape victim in jail while her rapist remains free. The Western feminist, for some reason, takes tremendous pride in her period.
I'm nasty! Like my blood stains on my bed sheets, we don't actually choose if and when to have our periods. Believe me, if we could, some of us would.
Yeah, well, according to Muhammad, your menstrual cycle is a curse of sorts that makes you deficient. Today's feminist stands in solidarity with members of the LGBT community. Devastatingly, though, there are 10 Muslim countries in which homosexual acts are punishable by death, and many more in which such acts are actually expressly illegal.
By the way, my friends, let me interrupt here. I'm talking about the hypocrisy of the feminist community. I could touch upon the hypocrisy of the gay, lesbian, transgender community. Where are their upraised voices against the tyrannies of Islam? I'm sorry, I can't hear them. Yeah, right, they aren't there. They'll complain about you and me because that's safe. When it's not safe, their lips are sealed. Sometimes that might be a good thing. Let's go back to the video.
These feminists despises President Donald J. Trump, but exalts any female in a political position of power. Pity shame Islam says that no nation shall ever succeed should they make a woman their leader. The Western feminist has become obsessed with her genitalia, roundly condemning any grabbing therein. Well, so-called pussy is a big deal in Islam as well. In fact, Muhammad says that the most important thing a woman brings to a marriage...
Undoubtedly, it's her opinions. We needn't go any further. The bottom line is this. You're going to go to my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. You're going to find 3 videos by this woman, Faith Goldie. You're going to watch them. You're going to listen to them. If you want, you can take notes. You're going to share them with people you know. You're going to post them on social media. Because this is truth. My friends, this is what truth sounds like. This is truth spoken to power, truth spoken to the ignorant, quite frankly. And if they weren't so ignorant, they'd probably be seeking truth on their own. But since they're not, we're going to give it to them. Women, feminists, gays, they need to know that they need to oppose Islam. Item. From the LA Times, a Los Angeles County coroner's report released on Monday revealed a mixture of drugs that were in actress Carrie Fisher's system when she went into cardiac arrest on an LA-bound flight and later died. Fisher's toxicology review found evidence of cocaine, methadone, MDMA, better known as ecstasy, alcohol, and opiates when she was rushed to Ronald Reagan UCLA Hospital on December 23rd, a toxicology report showed. The test results, quote, suggest there was an exposure to heroin, but that the dose and time of exposure cannot be pinpointed, unquote. Therefore, we cannot establish the significance of heroin regarding the cause of death in this case, unquote. My friends, Carrie Fisher is a tragic case. Handed everything, couldn't handle it, mental issues, substance abuse. It's a lesson for us. Let her tragic death serve to help other people. Stay away from substances. Keep your kids. Go out of your way to make sure your kids stay away from substances. Addictions kill. Don't let them kill you or anybody you love. I hope Carrie Fisher is resting in peace. She didn't have a happy life, but let's use the tragic circumstance of her death to make other people safe. We'll take a break. We'll be back. More Real Truth.
And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 16. Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. And footprints but a probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seen. If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Bear Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Bear Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-781-0343. Bear Survival. American Window Tinting Incorporated in Franktown reminds parents, keep an eye on your child while shopping. Children tend to stray or become lost. This poses an opportunity for a deal. Make every effort at all times. If you have information regarding a lost child, call local authorities at once. This message is from American Window Tinting Incorporated in Franktown. For residential or commercial window tinting, call 303-263-4228.
All right, guys, welcome back. Breaking news. Reports claim, this comes from Breitbart, reports claim there have been explosions at the main railway station in Brussels, and police have ordered people to evacuate the building. According to the headline, a man with an explosives belt was shot by Brussels police, and that is now being put under control. It's Ramadan. This is Islam. My friends, if you're saying, well, thank God it's in Brussels and not here, it is here. And it's going to continue to be here. For the third time today, here's Faith Goldie talking about whether or not we should have special gun rights for Muslims. Here we go.
Alright, so it won't come as a surprise to a lot of you that I love firearms. I own them, I shoot them, I'm a sports shooter, and I also, because I'm a Canadian, have a gun license. I've got a PAL and an RPAL, and in Canada, what's customary is that yours expires on your birthday. So my birthday's in June, so I thought, hey, I'm gonna go renew mine online. So I head to the firearms website here in this great country, and because I'm a nerd, I proceed to read the entirety of the website, in which I find this interesting little section that says, these are the people who cannot renew their firearms license online. If you are requesting a religious exemption from providing a photograph with your license. And you know, that really piqued my interest. I thought, wait a second, you're allowed religious exemptions for having a photograph on your firearms license? So I followed up. I wrote to the RCMP and asked them if this was, I don't know, some sort of a colossal typo, or if this was indeed the case. And I want to show you the answer that I got from the RCMP media spokes, who hears from me quite a bit, to be honest. Alright, and part of me, just bear with me, because I want to read this to you in full. As per section 14.1 in the Firearms Licenses Regulation, a signed photograph must show a full front view of an applicant's head and shoulders, and showing the applicant's face unobscured by any object. That makes sense. We want to see your whole face. That makes sense. But it goes on. If an applicant is not able to provide a photo that meets the above requirements for religious reasons, they may be granted an exception based on section 14.2. So then I go and look up section 14.2. And all that asks for is a declaration of your religion, basically by you, signed by you, and then a declaration signed by an individual who is of the same religion as you and is authorized under the laws of the province to perform marriages. I don't know about you, but I'm just a touch sketched out about that. I'm also a little bit confused because I thought that this Prime Minister was moving in the direction of more gun control, and I'll be honest, by and large, more gun control does not equate to less crime, but if we're going to have licenses, heck, it'd be really, really nice to be able to see your face. And hey, there's a bit of an macabre elephant in the room, isn't there? We know what this is about. So, I figured, let's put it to the test. How about we call the RCMP Firearms Licensing Department? I'm going to do it on speakerphone for you. And I'm going to say that I'm applying for a license, but I wish to wear a niqab. See how it goes.
RCMP Canadian Firearms Program. Bonjour, Jocelyn speaking. How can I help you?
Hi there, Jocelyn. How are you?
I'm great, and yourself?
Very well, thank you. I've just finished, completed, and passed my PAL and RPAL courses. And I haven't yet submitted in my application, but I'm just a little bit concerned about, for the firearms licensing, I understand we require a photograph. However, I'm a fully veiled woman, and I'm just wondering how that works.
Okay. Which province are you calling from?
Ontario.
Okay. The office there, I guess, is only open for just a few more minutes. Let me check and see. I know that, is there any way that you can get a photo exemption form filled out, or?
I think I can do that. Is there one available?
Okay, just one second.
Photo exemption form, my friends. So you need to have a photo to get a license, gun license, unless you don't want your photo taken. You say that you're a Muslim, and then guess what? You no longer need a photo taken. Now, I guess they're going on the proposition that Muslims aren't going to hurt anybody. Muslims aren't dangerous, so we don't really need to see their faces. Right? My friends, I don't know how you combat this institutional insanity. Make no bones about it. It is insanity. It's insanity that gets good, innocent people killed. Thanks to Faith Goldie. Item from ABC News. Wildlife investigators from India and Britain said on Tuesday they've uncovered an international fraud in which dried penises of endangered monitor lizards are being sold as a plant root regarded as a good luck charm and used in religious rituals. The London-based group World Animal Protection said the dried penises of Bengal monitor lizards and yellow monitor lizards look similar to a rare plant root sought by people who believe it brings them good luck. Unquote. My friends, I can't tell you that dried lizard penises bring you good luck. In fact, I don't think the lizard would say that either. Item from Breitbart. Backers of Bernie Sanders are suing the Democrat National Committee for fraud based on last summer's hacks revealing systemic bias for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 primary campaign. The class action suit, Wilding versus DNC Services Corp., is underway in federal court in Florida, where it's awaiting a ruling on the DNC's motion to dismiss, heard in April. The plaintiff case, Bernie donors, the plaintiff class, Bernie donors who also gave money to the DNC under the assumption of its impartiality in the 2016 primary contest. The suit alleges fraud, negligent misrepresentation, unjust enrichment, and a consumer protection violation. The claims are based on the celebrated leaked emails and memos from the Guccifer 2.0 hacks last June. The leaks appear to show direct assistance of Secretary Clinton to the detriment of Senator Sanders. The novel legal theory is based on the donors having been duped by the DNC's claims of impartiality. Unquote. My friends, clearly these donors were taken for a ride, but if they're stupid enough to donate to a Democrat candidate, I'm not stupid enough to have any sympathy for them. We'll be back.
Do not believe every spirit, but test the spirit, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone into the world. And then you'll know the spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. 1 John 4:1.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Thank them for doing a great job. Job and reap the benefits. Realize their job is being sometimes things. Oh, 352-2233. They're from the air because they care. Uniform people include Piccolo's restaurant in Denver reminded that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver. Not only best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo.
Item from Agence France Presse. French police have taken into custody 4 members of the family of a radicalized Islamist who was killed when he rammed a car loaded with guns and a gas bottle into a police van on the Champs-Élysées, a judicial source said Tuesday. The ex-wife, brother, and sister-in-law of Adam Daziri were detained late on Monday afternoon after police questioned them at the family home outside Paris. The assailant's father was also taken into custody during the evening, the source said. Daziri was killed in Monday's attack, but there were no other casualties. Sources close to the probe said he'd been on France's security watch list since 2015, over ties to the radical Islamist movement. Stop, my friends. This is crucial, so listen. Preventing Muslims from murdering people and blowing things up rests on our being able to track and keep our eyes on them. Well, as we're seeing in case after case after case, here are Muslims who are already being tracked, already being surveilled, and they're still committing acts of horror. Now, what about this Adam Daziri's family? His ex-wife, brother, and sister-in-law. Do you think that they were taken by surprise by this? Or do you think they knew about it all the time? And so the question becomes, what about these peace-loving Muslims? They didn't go out and kill anybody. But they knew Adam was going to, and they at least said nothing and possibly even helped him. So where are the peace-loving Muslims? Where are the Muslim moderates? It's a fantasy. You know when you're really preventing Muslims from killing you? When you're making sure there are no Muslims around you. Item from Breitbart. Some of the top CEOs of technology companies in America met with Donald Trump at the White House on Monday, praising him for hosting an afternoon summit on important tech issues. I'm absolutely convinced that during your administration there's going to be a huge explosion of new opportunities because of the platforms that are getting built in our industry. The one CEO said, it's going to happen soon during your leadership, he added. Apple CEO Tim Cook said he was pleased that Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his daughter Ivanka Trump were bringing technology companies together in the Trump administration to help streamline the government. Unquote. My friends, until Donald Trump became president, did you ever hear the phrase streamline government? Item from Breitbart. After the disappearance of one journalist and the murder of a second, government officials of the once moderate Islamic Maldives island chain are worried that radical Islam is growing in strength, putting at risk the lives of millions of Western tourists who go there to soak up the tropical paradise. The murder of blogger Yamin Rashid, who was stabbed by multiple assailants on April 23rd, deepened the worry of the central government in the Maldives capital of Male. Rashid had been tracking the rise of radical Islam in the Maldives and was likely killed for putting a spotlight on the radicalism he found. Unquote. My friends, don't think that radical Islam is restricted to the Maldives, or to France, or to Germany, or to the Middle East. It is here. It is metastasizing. Not only with the aid and assistance of other Muslims, but with the aid and assistance of American liberals who are bent on not only getting themselves killed, but getting you and me and our children killed also. That's the sickness, the twisted, convoluted soul that we're facing. People who want to murder us and other people who want to help them. I'll be back tomorrow, my friends, with more real truth. That you can count on. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay angry. Hasta luego.